Have you ever wondered why an old grandfather would ignore everyone in his family except one little grandson? The day my grandpa asked me to follow him into the forest, he wasn't carrying food, he wasn't carrying money, he was carrying a secret. Before we reached the old wooden bridge, he suddenly stopped walking. He turned around, looked straight into my eyes, and quietly said, "Hank, from this moment on, you are the only person I can trust." I laughed. I was only 12 years old. How could Grandpa trust me more than his own children? He smiled, placed his hand on my shoulder, and whispered, "One day, everyone in this family will misunderstand me. They'll think I betrayed them. When that day comes, you must stay silent." I didn't understand, but I promised him. Years passed. Our family slowly fell apart. My father stopped speaking to Grandpa. My uncles called him selfish. Even my grandmother couldn't understand his decision. Everyone believed Grandpa had destroyed our family forever, but they never knew the real reason behind everything he did. Only one person knew the truth, his grandson. And when Grandpa's secret was finally revealed, the people who hated him the most couldn't stop crying. My name is Henry Foster, but everyone I love has always called me Hank. This is the story of the secret between my grandpa and me. Before we begin, if you enjoy emotional family success stories, please like this video, share it with your family and friends, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to tell us where you're watching from in the comments. I'd love to see how far our stories are reaching around the world. Your support inspires us to create more powerful stories every day. Now, let's begin. Every Saturday morning at exactly 7:30 a.m., Grandpa Arthur would knock on my bedroom door. He never woke anyone else, not my father, not my uncles, only me. He would smile and quietly say, "Come on, Hank, we've got somewhere important to go." I never asked where, because every trip with Grandpa turned into an adventure. But one cold autumn morning, he took me somewhere he had never taken anyone before, beyond the old wooden bridge, beyond the river, to a place no one in our family even knew existed. And that was the day everything began. The forest became quieter with every step we took. The birds stopped singing. The wind was the only sound around us. After nearly an hour, Grandpa suddenly stopped. In front of us stood a tiny abandoned cabin. It looked as if nobody had touched it for decades. Grandpa smiled, then quietly said, "Nobody in our family knows this place exists." I looked at him, confused. "If nobody knows, then why are you showing me?" He didn't answer. He simply opened the old wooden door. Inside, everything was exactly where he had left it, almost as if someone had been waiting. Grandpa sat down in an old rocking chair. Then he looked at me. "Hank, if you truly trust me, you'll never bring anyone here. Not your father, not your grandmother, not your best friend. No one." I slowly nodded. It felt strange, but something inside me told me this place was far more important than I could understand. That evening, Dad noticed mud on my shoes. "Where were you?" Before I could answer, Grandpa smiled. "We went fishing." Dad laughed. "But you didn't bring any fish." Grandpa simply replied, "Not every journey is meant to bring something home." Dad didn't understand. Neither did I. But Grandpa looked at me as if reminding me to stay quiet. 3 days later, Grandpa was gone. Nobody knew where. Dad searched the entire town. My uncles called the police. Grandma couldn't stop crying. Only I knew exactly where he was. But I remembered the promise I had made. So I stayed silent. And for the first time in my life, keeping a promise hurt more than telling the truth. Late that evening, Grandpa finally returned home. Everyone was waiting. Dad shouted, "Where have you been?" Grandpa didn't answer. Instead, he calmly walked past everyone, looked at me, and gave me the smallest smile. That single smile made my father even angrier. From that day on, the distance between Grandpa and the rest of the family started growing. Nobody understood why he had changed. But deep inside, I knew the secret hidden beyond that old bridge was only just beginning. The following Sunday, our entire family gathered for dinner. My uncle suddenly asked, "Dad, who used to own that old cabin near the forest?" The room became silent. Grandpa slowly put down his spoon. His face changed instantly. Then he quietly replied, "Never mention that place again." Nobody dared ask another question. But that night, I couldn't stop wondering, why did Grandpa react that way? The next Saturday, Grandpa took me back. Halfway through the forest, he stopped beside an enormous oak tree. Someone had carved a strange symbol into its trunk. I reached out to touch it. Grandpa quickly grabbed my hand. "Not yet, Hank. One day, you'll understand why it's there." His voice sounded different, almost like he was remembering someone. Inside the cabin, Grandpa walked toward an old window. He stared outside for several minutes without saying a word. Then I noticed something I had never seen before. A tear rolled down his cheek. I whispered, "Grandpa, are you okay?" He smiled. "I'm remembering a promise I couldn't keep." Those words stayed in my mind forever. As we walked back, I heard footsteps, not ours. Someone else was behind us. Grandpa quietly whispered, "Don't turn around. Just keep walking." My heart started racing. When we finally reached home, the footsteps had disappeared. Grandpa looked toward the dark road, as if he knew exactly who had been following us. The following weekend, Grandpa opened a dusty drawer inside the cabin. He pulled out a faded black and white photograph. There were 4 young men standing together. One of them was Grandpa. The other 3 had their faces carefully scratched out. I asked, "Who are they?" Grandpa folded the picture, placed it back into the drawer, and quietly said, "Those are ghosts that should never return." For the first time, I realized Grandpa wasn't hiding a treasure. He was hiding a painful part of his past. One rainy afternoon, a postman arrived. He handed Grandpa a very old envelope. Dad smiled. "Maybe it's something important." Grandpa looked at it for only a few seconds. Then he walked outside, lit a match, and burned the entire letter without opening it. Dad shouted, "What are you doing?" Grandpa quietly replied, "Some memories are better left unread." Nobody understood, but I knew the cabin and this letter were somehow connected. The following week, while walking home from school, an old man stopped me. He smiled, then quietly said, "So, you're Arthur Foster's grandson." My heart skipped. I had never seen him before. Before I could ask anything, he whispered, "Tell your grandpa the past is coming back." Then he disappeared into the crowd. That evening, when I repeated those words, Grandpa dropped the cup from his hands. Back at the cabin, there was one small door, always locked. Every Saturday, Grandpa cleaned every room except that one. I finally asked, "What's inside?" He smiled. "Not today. Maybe when you're older." That locked room became the biggest mystery of my childhood. Months passed. Dad couldn't stay silent anymore. One evening, he stood in front of Grandpa. "You've been hiding something for years. What is it?" Grandpa looked at him, then quietly replied, "The day you stop chasing answers, they'll find you." Dad walked away, angrier than ever. From that day, the family slowly stopped trusting Grandpa. Only I never doubted him. One cold morning, Grandpa placed an old brass compass into my hand. "This doesn't show north. It shows character." I laughed. "How?" He smiled. "You'll understand. When life gives you 2 roads." I kept the compass, without knowing it would one day decide the biggest choice of my entire life. That evening, we sat outside the cabin. The sun was slowly disappearing. Grandpa looked at the sky, then at me. "Hank, do you know why I chose you?" I shook my head. "I didn't choose you because you're the smartest. I didn't choose you because you're the strongest. I chose you because you listen before you judge." Those words changed me forever. The following month, Dad and my uncles gathered together. They had reached a decision. "We're selling Grandpa's cabin. It's old. It's useless. It has no value." Grandpa didn't argue. He simply smiled, then looked at me, as if he already knew what would happen next. That night, I couldn't stay quiet anymore. "Grandpa, why don't you tell them the truth?" He gently placed his hand on my shoulder. "If people refuse to trust you, no explanation will ever be enough. Sometimes, time is the only answer." I lowered my head. For the first time, I understood why Grandpa stayed silent. A week later, Grandpa said, "Hank, this may be our last walk." The words hit me hard. We crossed the old bridge, walked through the forest, and reached the cabin one final time. Grandpa looked around, smiling quietly. Then he whispered, "No matter what happens, never let hatred decide your future." I didn't know those would be the last life lessons he would ever give me. 3 days later, Grandpa Arthur passed away peacefully. The entire family cried, even those who had been angry with him. During the funeral, nobody talked about the cabin. Nobody talked about the secret. Only I remember everything Grandpa had told me. And deep inside, I knew my journey had only just begun. A week after the funeral, our family returned to the old cabin. Dad unlocked the door. For the first time, everyone walked inside. The room was exact as Grandpa had left it. No gold, no hidden fortune, no expensive treasures. My uncles looked disappointed. "So this was it? Nothing?" I quietly walked toward the locked room. Grandpa had never allowed anyone to enter. I took a deep breath, turned the old handle, and slowly pushed the door open. Inside, the walls were covered with hundreds of photographs. Every single picture showed our family. Birthdays, graduations, wedding anniversaries, childhood memories. Even photos most of us had completely forgotten. In the center of the room hung one simple wooden sign. It read, "A family that remembers its past will never lose its future." At that moment, nobody spoke. Dad slowly sat down, holding one of the old photographs. Tears filled his eyes. For years, he believed Grandpa was protecting money, but Grandpa had been protecting our family's memories. That evening, nobody rushed home. For hours, we sat together, looking through every photograph, laughing, crying, remembering. For the first time in years, our family felt complete again. Dad looked at me, then quietly smiled. "Hank, now I finally understand why Grandpa trusted you." I smiled, looking at Grandpa's empty chair. He never wanted us to inherit wealth. He wanted us to inherit each other. Before leaving, I carefully locked the cabin, not to hide a secret, but to protect the place that brought our family back together. Some families leave behind money, some leave behind property. My grandpa left behind something far more valuable. He left behind a family that finally remembered how to love each other again. Lesson from this story: success isn't always measured by money. True success is measured by the love you protect, the promises you keep, the respect you earn, and the family you never give up on. Because in the end, the richest person isn't the one who owns the most money. It's the one who leaves behind the greatest legacy.